Hey guys, welcome back to my podcast. And today I have an incredible guest, Eric Reason, Mr. Test Don't Guess, the YouTube celebrity, as I call him, my good friend out of Nashville, Tennessee. He's been crushing it on YouTube, Instagram, helping a lot of guys with different techniques and applications, some useful information about coatings and industrial finishes. We talked about social media, we talked about life, we talked about business. It was a great conversation, so make sure you give it a listen and enjoy. So let's just jump right in and start the conversation with Eric Reason, Mr. Test Don't Guess, the finishing world celebrity, YouTube superstar.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but
It is Saturday afternoon in your area. How's life? What's in your mind?
what's on my mind?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know, man. Just cleaning up the shop a little bit today, and went to my son's soccer game this morning, and we're getting ready to have a little party for him this afternoon after I get off of this. So yeah, that's kind of it. Just kind of chilling a little bit today, which I don't normally do very often.
This is awesome. You know, I caught myself thinking yesterday. It was Friday night yesterday, somewhere around 9 p.m. or 10 p.m., which is not too late for me. And I was like, why are we doing this? I mean, it's pretty late and we have families and, everybody's waiting for us. This probably means something. This probably means that, we really love what we do. And, I guess that's where most of the happiness comes from. What do you think when it comes to, working hard, long days, sometimes through the weekends?
I would say that I have a problem. I definitely don't have much balance in terms of things. I tend to be kind of an all or nothing kind of person, and am sort of stepping back a little bit currently, because I think things are way too out of balance for me at this point. So I'm going to be saying no to a lot more things. And I guess ever so often, you kind of do a gut check and you ask those questions that you're asking and you go, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I in this group? What am I really adding value to and what I'm not? And so I'm kind of at that point where I'm rethinking again where I'm going to be headed and what I'm going to be doing. So I mean, pretty much things will stay the same, but I'm going to take a lot of things off my plate, and I'm going to do some different things to try to support the channel and the things that I have, because I haven't made a dime off of it in almost 2 years. I started making some money off of the ad revenue, but I've wanted to stay away from getting tied in with various companies so that I could stay, I guess in a neutral position. And it's interesting now because I end up in the middle of a lot of political things between companies now. And I have enough of an audience now that it sometimes gets a little scary because you can put information out and you see, products being sold and you see other people making a lot of money and they're making it off of your back, and you're like, wait a minute, hold on, what am I doing here? So yeah, it's kind of gotten a lot more interesting since the last time we talked.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been following you and I've been thinking, man, it must be super hard to, to keep that balance, to stay neutral and to stay kind of like in between everybody and still provide truthful information, accurate information, and bring some value to the finishers out there. I appreciate a lot what you do for,
Yeah,
for
for
every
sure.
for all of us.
It gets complicated because, you know, when I started off, nobody knew me, nobody cared. I said what I wanted to say, and I still do. But I find that these people are your friends, and you get to a point where you can hurt businesses and people, and you have to be there's a responsibility that goes along with that. And a lot of times now, if something comes up, I can call the company and say, hey, this is a problem that you need to address. But yeah, the internet is real, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Like people say, it exposes a lot of different things. But before we jumped into, before we dive deep into the social media aspect, into the relationships that you've built into what you do in general on YouTube and on social media as a whole, why wouldn't we know a little bit more about Eric? Like, what's your story? Why didn't you give us a brief story about yourself? Tell us who you are and who you are as a person and what's your professional kind of a story background.
Sure. So I actually went to school to be in some sort of music capacity. My degree is actually in music theory, and I probably could have doubled in composition. And so basically, what a music theorist does is basically take music apart and try to figure out how it works. Along the way, out of school, I got connected. Well, right out of college, I was like, well, I need a job. And I had someone that was looking to move some cabinets. And while I was in school, I had been like, I would help people move houses and done some moving and stuff like that. So I thought that's what it was. Well, I got there and she's like, no, we need someone, part-time to sling cabinets. And so I got in very early on coming out of school into the cabinet business. And then on the side, I was still doing a lot of music producing, playing out. And so I kind of had this dual path going. And then what ended up ultimately happening is when the economy crashed in 2000, whatever, I think the first year that Obama came into office, pretty much all of my music stuff just kind of went away. And I kind of saw that the writing was on the wall in the music business, that it was going to continue to shrink. And I was kind of burnt out a little bit on it. And so I just kind of took another direction and started my own company. And what I did at that time was I was really more as a contractor. And then I was like building furniture and finishing along with that. But the bulk of my business was, remodeling, taking out walls, installing cabinets, things like that. And then right before my son was born, I just was totally burnt out with that whole thing. And I came home and I said to my wife, I'm done. She looked at me and said, good. And so then I kind of restarted again. And what I really wanted to focus on was just furniture building. And through that, I'd met a lot of guys like Greg Saunders. You've heard me talk about him, and Bob Close, which is a good friend of mine. And I kind of, I was really heavy into finishing, and I'd had a lot of failures, and I'd had a lot of problems with water base, but I was kind of like, I like this water base thing. I was able to go into houses and not have to deal with all the the heavy smells and the formaldehyde and all that sort of stuff. And so I had a long background of it, and I knew all this information, and I had done all this testing. And those guys kept saying, why don't you write a book, do something? So I just decided a couple of years ago, I was like, okay, I'm going to do a YouTube channel, and I'm only going to talk about industrial wood coatings. And what we're going to do is we're going to put these things up on the chopping block, and we're going to see how they perform. And kind of part of what I was going for was because now it's not a problem when you say water-based, people don't freak out. But back then, when I would say I was using a water-based finish, people would look at me like, well, that stuff's not very good. So I was always having to sell myself and sell these products. And so that's how I came up with all this, the different chemicals and stuff I use, like acetone. Like none of these things were really on accident. They were just different things that, like some lady one time asked me, how does this finish hold up to fingernail polish? And I thought, well, that's a good question. And so that's where the acetone came from. And then the denatured alcohol was sort of just like, it's a high concentrate of of alcohol. So, if you've got, somebody spills, some sort of alcohol in there, you got that. So I was just trying to find something that, you can't test the whole gamut on a 7-minute video. So I was just trying to figure out like a couple little things that I could do that would just kind of showcase the chemical resistance, adhesion, and then, sort of the burnishing and the mar resistance of a coating, just so that people had an idea and I could, obviously sell the coatings that I was trying to sell to my clients at the same time. So that's kind of a short story of me and how I got to where I'm at right now.
This is awesome. I love your story. And yeah, I resonate with it a lot because I was in music school, like not my post-secondary education. I was actually studying social work and sociology. But before that, I was heavily involved into music, playing the piano, accordion, and it was a huge passion of mine as well, along with, all kinds of different artistry. And then I got involved back into this when, I got my paperwork done, when we immigrated to here to Canada, and when all of these life things got handled, I was like, all right, so what is my true passion? And then I kind of got reconnected with that. And then I guess what resonates a lot with me from your story is that artistic part of us. I mean, it's super hard to work 10, 12, 14 hours a day without truly loving what we do. So that passion and that love to what we do is a huge part of me as well. The fact that you're willing to share with everybody and help everybody, I have a lot of respect for that. And that's what I like this guy, just because he's being honest. I mean, he doesn't care what this coating, like what the name of the coating is. It seems like he's trying to help same guys and girls out there on the field to get their job done and not to look like fools in front of their clients. So I appreciate a lot, and I guess a lot of our audience, a lot of your followers feel the same way. So just, wanted to take a quick moment and thank you for that, and, give you a little bit of a appreciation here.
Well, I appreciate that. It's kind of interesting because that it's snowballed on itself, and even that, like currently right now, I have 2 other finishers that are quote unquote competitors that are working side by side with me currently on a project, and it's been really cool. It's interesting. The music business, people don't tell secrets. But now when I got into the building trades, and those sorts of things, like they were just like, hey man, this is how we do it. And there was a lot of like talking amongst like woodworkers and things like that. There tends to be more sharing. In finishing, it's like that. Like I kind of joked, somebody the other day made some comment on a YouTube video, and I said, and they were kind of saying the same thing, thanks for sharing because no one shares. And I said, I think it's funny because for some reason finishers think they're gods among men, and that they never have problems and they never want to talk about those things. But my kind of concept is how do you push anything forward if you're not talking about the struggles, if you're not being real, if you're not telling these companies, hey, you know what, your product's good here, but it sucks here. How are you going to push this industry forward if we're all so close-minded? I mean, that's typically what I found. And I still see that a ton, even with companies, they don't want to share. It's interesting now because you were talking earlier about, people getting into this game, like the doors are blown open now. I see more and more people, on these platforms. I know we talked before, like TikTok, Instagram, and I encourage guys to get on there just for, even if you're not going to promote your business or you're not, you don't want to put yourself out there, just go on there and be a part of the community. Like just share your work, say, here's a picture of a kitchen. It's crazy the amount of people that I've met and how far I've been able to push things even faster because we're bouncing stuff off of each other. We're like, hey, we tried this and that didn't work. We tried that, this didn't work. It just makes no sense to me to keep it all to myself. like I said, you're not pushing anything forward that way.
Man, I really love what you do. I really love the way you bring people on. Great to see a lot of different people, a lot of good people coming on the platform, Instagram, right? Right, like that's where you can actually tag somebody, you can
Right.
share a story, you can really like get that one person connected with the community that you've built around yourself, and not only you but a lot of other guys, right? Like it's been such a great feeling to be a part of the community, and I really like the way you connect people, because it's extremely important. I mean, people feel connected. Right now we're talking about almost a year, right, being into this pandemic world, like post COVID or through COVID world. And sometimes it's tough, like even though we've said before, we're more introverted guys, right? Like, being finishers, being people in the field, a lot of times we work by ourselves, so we're kind of like more introverted kind of guys. But sometimes it gets hard, and then right now, during this pandemic, just seeing all the posts that the other guys make, and all the stories, and we can kind of connect on the personal level with a lot of different people, not only finishers but like people in general. The way you do it has just been really, really, it's just been great to see. That one guy that I like a lot, Insta Sprayers, right, if I
Mm-hmm.
pronounced it correct. I mean, that guy is just, he's killing it in the shop, and then he's building his little community around him. It's just, man, I admire guys like you, and I have a lot of respect to people who are bringing and uplifting other people, because yeah, that's the only way. I totally agree with you. This is the only way we can actually move forward, push the limits, improve everything, quality, customer service, the knowledge that we have, the safety aspect of it, everything.
Yeah, and I want to comment on that because I think it's important. Because I think one of the drawbacks of social media is, and one of the things is like, and it depends on what you're trying to achieve. But I would say, and you've heard me say this before, like, don't copy what I do. Don't copy what bigger guys do. Do your own thing and be yourself. You can game this whole system if you want to, and you can do the right things to get the followers and all that stuff. But I really don't care about any of that. My whole thing has been from day one, like, I want to know the truth. I want to tell the truth. And if people like it and I have a big following, then great. If not, I don't care. I would rather have 2 followers and be, I don't know if the word's legit, but be
Yep.
honest
Genuine.
about what
Yep.
it is. Genuine. That's a good word for it. Yeah. So, and I would encourage you to, whatever it is, like, I mean, we have some of the fun stuff that we do, and a lot of it's like joking around, like the whole glass factory thing. That was just something that kind of took off on its own. The whole test don't guess thing. That was me looking for some sort of, tagline. And then all the other stuff, the airless assassins, all that stuff is just fun, just to get people excited. And it's cool, man. Like, the whole glass factory thing's been awesome for me, just from the fact that, like, I see people that pick up the sprayer for the first time and they're getting those results, and it's based on all this hard work that all of us have done. And it makes me happy, like, when people tag me with those posts, because it's like, dude, that's so awesome. Because, like, dude, I was not spraying like that, 3 years ago. Like, I wasn't getting those results right off the bat. So it's just really cool. And, like, a lot of these new products, they're just getting better and better. And a lot of these companies are going, hey, we hear what you're saying. We see what you're saying. It's getting more competitive, with these companies wanting to search for new resins and get better stuff. So anyway, I'm getting sidetracked now, but ultimately, all I just want to say is that, get on there and be yourself and figure out, what it is. Like, when I got on social media, I was like, I kind of played that game in the beginning. I was like, okay, I need followers. Like, that's the only thing that matters. So, you go out and you do all these little stupid things. And then I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to create my own platform and do things my way. So that's what I encourage people to do.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you here. And you do, like, you walk the walk, man. It's like you stand out among all the other guys. The posts that you make, like the YouTube videos that you create, even though they don't get millions of views, right? Well, I think it's just because of the industry, like this niche, cabinet finishing, or even going deeper, refinishing. I mean, it's so narrow. I would say, man, like out of all the people on the internet, on social media, a lot of people know you. A lot of people have heard your name. Whenever you Google, like, like that dominating Mr. Michael Crane out of Lake Geneva, like all of his, search engine optimization. You Google cabinet refinishing Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, there's nobody else other than him. So whenever you Google cabinet refinishing or something like that, I bet 3, 4 out of, if not 9 out of 10 videos will be from you. And if you click on one of them, there will be a bunch more in suggestions. The fact that you've been putting out all this, honest opinions and like no bullshit approach makes you unique. And I totally agree with you. That is a great advice. You said it absolutely right. Don't copy anybody. Don't try to be somebody else. But whatever you feel somebody else is doing great, take that, learn that,
Sure.
adopt it, and use it. I mean, there's so many great things that have helped me make my business better. There's a lot of mistakes that I made on my own, right? But buying all those fancy turbines and all those AAA systems, right? Like the air assist and stuff like that. How much money did I spend? It's insane. And then here we go. Eric brings that lovely guy, Danius Rodriguez, and he talks about airless. And I'm like, I've been running airless for like 5 years or so. I'm like, why didn't I even try this? Like, why did I think that like this is a whole different game and I got to spend a lot of money? Like, why? Well, because the companies that want to sell you stuff want to sell you stuff, and they will sell unless you know what you need to buy, right? So when I walked into that store without, calling the names and stuff like that, I was like, hey guys, what do you guys think about that one? And the salesperson said, it's a great machine. You're going to love it. And they sold it. So I used it for like 2 jobs. And then it's been sitting in my shop collecting dust ever since. And then I'm running my airless guns and I'm super happy with it. And Dennis is my best friend now. And the whole thing changed.
And I want to say something about that. So let's back up before Dennis. Actually, the whole airless thing came from Joey Harrison from Circa. He's the technical representative. And he and Michael Smith from Malaysia, they used to work together. And where they started seeing the whole airless thing was actually in Malaysia's exterior wood coatings. Basically, if you look at my body of work, it's just like the next step. You learn more, you learn more, you learn more. The coatings get better and better and better. The industry as a whole, and if you haven't watched the video with Russell Cragelis,
I have.
that is an amazing. Those 2 videos are amazing to watch, not because of me, but because of what he has to say. And it's coming from someone else besides me. Like, I worked really, really hard to get him on there because we had talked, and he had experienced everything that I've experienced. And he just decided to say, screw it. I'm going to do everything opposite of what the industry is telling me. And a lot of that, unfortunately, just comes, and he said it best, it comes from them being inundated with solvent finishes. Okay. Which, mostly I'm talking about water-based. And I have, I've banged my head against the wall with, turbine systems and high viscosity water-based coatings. They work great with low viscosity water-based coatings. And when, the Malaysia and the Renner stuff kind of came onto the scene in our world, it was like, I can't get this stuff to spray right. What am I doing wrong? And so then everybody says air assist. So I go spend $5,000 on an air assist airless, and I'm going, this thing sucks too. what's the deal? And so then I called Joey, and I said, hey, I'm ready to try your old stuff. I got my air assist. What do you suggest? He said, well, before you do it, I mean, I do the air assist, but try airless. And I was like, what? Airless? Like, you mean like stuff that people paint their houses with? Like, you're crazy. Like, that's totally not how you produce a fine finish. So I think the problem is that with water base, especially, if someone is not experienced with it, and most people are not, let's just be honest, at this point in the game where it's 2020, people are just now starting to understand water-based finishes. Even though they've been around for a while, I've been shooting them for like 6 or 7 years. But I've had on and off success. But I can tell you 100%, and we can show up anywhere, and I can prove to you that airless, it's not perfect, but it causes the least amount of issues with water-based finishes. And it also shoots solvent finishes amazingly well. And I think some of all this too also stems before they had fine finish tips as well. Those fine finish tips and the stuff that's going on now with the technology there, especially Tritech, it's unbelievable. I mean, I honestly right now I have a Wagner Cobra. I probably have, I would say, $8,000 tied up in this system. I can put those two machines side by side. They use the same amount of paint, and it's really hard to tell the difference between the two. So you want to spend $1,700? You want to spend $8,000? Now, on top of that, though, I'm still not satisfied with air assist and water base, and I continue to get better with it and understand it. And I'm just not there yet, and I think a lot of people aren't either. There's a disjoint between, is it the coating, is it the pump, should we be using diaphragms? There's all these questions that still need to be answered. And fortunately, I've made enough waves with this stuff that I actually do have Wagner. They're very interested in what I have to say. So that's good, because now I can actually work with a company and say, hey, we know this works. We know this doesn't work. And I have a little bit of support, because I mean, dude, it's expensive to try to go out and do all these experiments. So it's nice to have a company that's like, okay, you tell us what you're running in the experiment, and we'll send you some stuff, and then you can report back to us. Now, a lot of people are going to go, oh, Eric's getting stuff for free. Well, no, I'm not. I'm doing a whole hell of a lot of work and R&D for a company for free, honestly, because what they're going to send me and how it's going to help them and moving forward, you can't put a freaking price tag on it.
Yeah. And it's a big question whether or not it's going to perform well.
Sure.
From the first time. I was actually blown away by the fact that a lot of people don't understand how these things work. For example, like a quick example for the general public is there's a lot of painters out there who paint houses, right? Like conventional painting, drywall painting, spray works, stuff like that, who spray architectural coatings. And there is a company, Sherwin-Williams, out there. We have it too here in Canada. And the deal that they have had before, it's called a test drive. So what it is, I don't know if you guys have it in the US, but what it is you can get up to 20 gallons, if I'm not mistaken, 20 gallons, right? 20 gallons worth of material, any material that you haven't purchased before. And if your sales rep approves it, which they always do because they don't really care, they want to sell as much as possible, and you can get as much as 20 gallons of material at a reduced price, 50% off of your contractor's price, and run the material and see what you think, even though if it's a product that's been around for years and it's tested and it's proven that it works and stuff like that, you can still do it. But not a lot of people realize that there's a lot of time wasted that comes along with it, because whenever you switch over to the other material, it is very time consuming. There's a lot of issues that you might run into. There's a lot of stuff that comes along with it. And this is like a regular conventional paint, right? Architectural coatings. Super easy stuff. Like, what can go wrong with eggshell paint that you throw on the walls? Not a lot of stuff, right? But there's still some stuff. But we're talking about industrial coatings, applications, applicators, guns, like all the tips, everything. And it's a totally different game. So for all the guys who had a thought about, Eric or anybody else getting some stuff for free or getting paid for it, guys, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, well, and also I want to tag something on top of that too, because when you're talking about industrial water-based finishes, something else that people need to understand is that these are not like solvent finishes. And where I'm going with this is a solvent finish. Let's just take a pre-cap, for instance. Okay. Pretty simple technology, been around forever. Well, so everything mathematically lines up with those finishes. So if you have, X amount of thinner here or resin, then you have to have something else on the other side that equals it out. Water-based finishes are not like that. It's like the Wild West. So what one formulator does, another formulator does something entirely different. And also, you don't have these checks and balances with water-based. You talk to some chemists and they're like, it's amazing that we have the technology to put an isocyanate in a water-based coating because it just doesn't even make sense. That's come out of their mouths. And we still don't know, and formulators still don't know, what is the best way to formulate water-based. Like, this is an ongoing, process. Like, one of the biggest failures and issues that we have in our industry is vertical application, because 99.9% of these materials are made for flat lines. So we're out here trying to do stuff with these coatings they were never intended for. You take like an Advance or a cabinet coat or Sherwin-Williams urethane or Pro Classic. All of those are designed to be put on a vertical application. So these guys are using these giant tips and, they just hose it on and it comes out looking beautiful. Well, that's the reason why. And then they try an industrial wood coating and they're struggling. It's like in the floor. It's because it's not the same animal. Even though they're both water-based, they are made entirely differently.
Let's back up a little bit and talk about the social media, your social media experience, along with all the connections with all the company representatives, like industrial coatings, the tools and equipment manufacturers, and all those company owners. Sometimes it's not just the salespeople, but sometimes you can get a real close connection with a company owner, which is insane. But that's the way social media works. Other than that, what do you think? What kind of benefits do you see for the guys who are just thinking about that, who are thinking about starting posting, daily or like twice a day or 3 times a day? They don't know what to post. They probably overthink a little bit about that. What kind of benefits you can get out of it? Just from your experience, what has happened since you started posting a lot and not trying to overthink stuff?
Well, so my platform is probably different than why most people would start an Instagram or whatever feed. I think most people are starting it because they want more business. Mine's actually not really predicated so much on that. It's actually more for guys that are in the industry. And then I have stuff sprinkled in where, clients can see my work and things like that. But the majority of my platform has pretty much kind of shifted from where I started into, I'm kind of like
an educator.
Yeah, basically a water-based educator or, whatever. So, most of my posts are predicated around different companies and finishes and, what they look like off the gun with certain tips, certain, pressures, etc. So, yeah. Now, what has that done for me? Well, Well, it's very interesting now because, 2 years ago, I couldn't get a sales rep on the phone. Now I can call the CEO and he's like, "Hey, Eric, how you doing, man? What can we do for you today?" So that's pretty funny when people see my number come up, like I immediately get an answer or they will call me back within 3 or 4 hours because they know I'm going to tell them something interesting, or I don't know, they want to talk to me. They want to find out what I've been doing, what I've been finding out. That's cool. Um, uh, I guess I make these guys a lot of money, so I guess that's one reason why they pick up the phone.
100%, man. That's the biggest thing. What's
Well,
next? What
so I
else?
think I think the biggest thing that I see though is like most of the companies that I know, they are super supportive of what I do and they want to help as well. They want to do their part. One guy in particular, I mentioned him earlier, is Joey Harrison. Huge. Not a lot of guys talk about circus stuff. They're not as widely known, but you're going to be seeing more of him because their company, they're actually doing educational things now. And I think I posted something the other day where he had a little thing that they were doing and he was talking. But a lot of these guys at these companies and the formulators and stuff, like they actually really care, trying to figure out how to make it work in terms of business. So I think that's what's the biggest thing to me is I see the industry moving forward more now than I did because they're understanding what smaller shops need. They get it now. And so I think that's the coolest thing is like I just see this whole big like thing happening, and it's going to be interesting to see in the next 5 years where it all goes. And honestly, all of the R&D is being done in water-based coatings. It's not in solvent coatings anymore. I've made the joke about the water-based revolution, and it's interesting now, and I'm kind of getting sidetracked, but I think it's interesting to talk about this, is that before it was always the solvent guys were so like water based sucks. And now I'm seeing a lot of these guys going, wait a minute, what are these guys doing? What is this water based revolution? What are these guys talking about? We thought water based sucked. And I'm seeing a lot of guys actually taking it seriously now. And what I'm actually seeing is some of these water-based coatings are starting to eclipse solvent finishes, especially like precats and conversion varnishes. I think in 10 years, this is just me rubbing the crystal ball. I think what water-based is now is what your precats and conversion varnishes are going to be in 10 years. They're going to be the exception. And I think a lot of these other coatings are going to be more the rule. I don't know that. I think solvent polyurethanes are going to hang on for a while because that's a really good technology. But it's really interesting to see. And I get a behind the scenes of all this. All these guys are laughing at me, but they don't know that I know all these formulators. I know all these guys. I know what they're doing. They tell me because they want to tell me because they know I'm going to go out and talk about it. It's interesting. I mean, a lot of big shops are changing over. It's just a really cool thing. So I don't know. I guess you feel like you're part of a movement or something like that. I think that's pretty cool. Like that's kind of what a lot of times drive me. It's just cool to see. And it freaks me out, when you're being called by magazines and you see yourself in magazines, and I don't know, it trips you out.
Absolutely, and especially if something big happens in the future and your name's going to be put on something big, like not only like a technical revolution, but let's say safety revolution, right? Not a revolution, but a big and loud thing, right? I assume you have definitely heard about lead content in paint and asbestos from the past, right? Like people didn't know about that kind of stuff. Like people
Sure.
had no assumptions, no idea of what's in there. It performs great, and like they were probably proud of what they used back in the day. But a lot of people died. A lot of people got sick because of that. And now we're going through some transitional time with the water-based. It's still a new technology, right? Like, even though it's been around for a long time, but like you said, it's been an incredible run over this past couple of years. What it can do right now, it's crazy. I mean, 2K poly waterborne formulation will outperform any pre-cut lacquer. Anytime we're in the job site cleaning the cabinets with acetone, it just rubs the pre-cut right through.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from the first couple of seconds, I'm like, this was a very expensive kitchen. People paid a lot of money for it, and they have pre-cut. All their undersink doors look terrible. The finishes, failing. It's just flaking off. I mean, the water damaged everything. It looks like crap. Like all the scratches. I mean, it felt good, right? Like when it was brand new, right? But now we're seeing what it is. And when we spray 2K poly waterborne, it's amazing how good it performs whenever we introduce some chemicals to it or some impact, no matter what it is, some scratches, an entirely different coating, and it's way, way better than a regular pre-cut and a solvent-based. Totally agree with you. But let's talk about safety for a quick moment. I don't know everybody, and I don't know all the information, but I've been very curious, and I've been interested in this topic because not a lot of people talk about safety. I know you've talked about it. You've talked about isocyanates with Jacob from Lacey, with Michael Crane, and probably a few other guys. But I know there's a lack of information. It's not like everybody knows what it is and how to deal with it and stuff like that. But some of the guys do care about it, and they're eager to share. Midnight Finishing, Craig, great guy from British Columbia, from my home province here. He switched over to the air-fed respirator from regular filters, and he feels great. He shared his experience with it. He's like, man, it's a game changer. I mean, I don't have those headaches anymore that I had before. And these guys like this, like they're like spraying every day. This is their life. It's not like they're doing one of a kind project and then they move on, and then they never spray it again, right? People have been spraying without masks for a long time. Some of the people do it to this day, and it's insane. Like, it drives me crazy. I message to those guys, and then they say, like, some of the big guys, like, without calling the names, man, some of the big guys spray without a mask on Instagram. I don't care about their health. I mean, that particular person, I don't really care about that guy. Yes, he is not, that smart. Maybe like he doesn't care. Maybe he doesn't have the knowledge. But man, you're giving an example. Like, you're showing to other people what you do, and they can think something. Like, they can make assumptions. Oh, water-based. Oh, right, like water-based, man. Like, what can be bad about it, right? Like, I can spray without a mask. And then they spray with masks. As we all know, isocyanates, they don't get stopped by those regular charcoal filters. And yesterday, I talked to, like, I had a quick chat over the Facebook Messenger with a guy who still sprays conversion varnish, solvent-based conversion varnish, not the formaldehyde-free stuff, the formaldehyde acid-catalyzed conversion varnish on site. What he said was, yeah, man, it stinks for several hours, but we have some air movement and stuff like that, so it's okay. But we're thinking about something. People spray conversion varnish on site to this day. Not a lot of people know about that. Yes, we have the formaldehyde content in the pre-cuts too, right? It's
Sure.
already there.
Yeah.
It comes from the factory. Some of the people do that too. Is it good? Is it bad? We don't know until we find out several decades later.
When you're talking about the isocyanates, this has been a huge frustration for me, because depending on who you talk to is what kind of information you get. Like, we know that 3M basically takes a hard line and says, I don't care what the level of isocyanates is, you should wear an air-fed respirator. And we all know, like, no one's going to argue that that's the best. I think a lot of people just have a hard time swallowing the $3,000 price tag. But I mean, $3,000 for your life. I mean, come on, guys. Like, let's be honest. It's ridiculous. Not to. Uh, if you're gonna spray that stuff.
Let me just add something real quick here. For somebody who's thinking about air-fed respirator. So Matt told me that the mask and the system that he got wasn't that expensive. I mean, it was just over $1,000 altogether or something like that. So it wasn't super expensive. The stuff that I got recently, I didn't buy like a brand new stuff. I didn't invest into the compressor, like the thing that gets connected to the airline, just because you need the filters, 3-stage filtration and stuff like that. So what I did was I got a used pump, free air pump from Bullard. So a lot of sand blasting companies use that kind of pumps and stuff. So it wasn't that expensive at all. Maybe $150, $200 US or something like that. I changed the filters, both intake and the other, like there's 2 filters on it. Spent another $50 or so. Bought a new breathing hose and got the hood. I'm still working on getting that mask, that fancy, kind of a shield type of mask.
The 3M one. Yeah.
Or something similar to that, because there's a lot of alternatives. Not all the, but a lot of auto body shops, they all use that. But it's like there's so many different brands available, but we don't know about those. Yeah, I just stopped by an auto body shop and I went inside and I talked to those guys. I'm like, guys, like, can I just have a quick look, like at what you guys use for the masks and the respirators? And he's like, yeah, man, sure. And he turns on the pump. The pump is like super quiet. I was like, whoa. Mine is like pretty loud, so I'm thinking about changing it, buying a new one. I didn't spend a lot of money, maybe like $500 US altogether. And now, at least in the shop, I started taking it to the job sites. I mean, I haven't posted much about it because I wasn't sure whether it works or, but it does work, man. I feel nothing but fresh air coming into my lungs. It's just, it's a game changer. It's not just a matter of investments, right? Like if you want it, you can get it. You can, like, I don't have a lot of money to invest. I'm trying to be like as practical as possible, and like I've wasted a lot of money. And I decided,
I understand that. Me too.
I don't want to just throw money, for no reason. So,
and I think the reason why no one talks about it is because part of it is we just don't know.
Yep.
Like, let's just be honest. Like, part of it is and that's kind of where I was going with the conversation. And have 3M that basically says no, and then if you read the data sheets, it says use for air fed, but then you have representative stuff from companies that say all these filters are fine. Basically, it depends on, are you spraying water, are you spraying solvent? Well, solvent, I think there's a pretty hard line with that because you're using 70% isocyanates in most of them. But where it gets dicey is with the water base, because most of them, the highest ratio I know with a water base is a 2-to-1, or sorry, not a 2-to-1, but a 4-to-1, which is like 25% hardener. So there's a much lower dose, but it's still there. Even with the crosslinkers, I still question the crosslinkers, the health. And I've done a lot of research on polyiziridine, and polyiziridine isn't even listed in 3M's chemicals for respirators. So a lot of it's just there's not enough information.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, now I do know that Brian Kuhn from the Professional Finishers chat room, he's really big on the OSHA stuff, but I don't even know how much research OSHA has done on these industrial wood coatings. I really don't know.
You have the real opportunity to talk to those companies and probably like talk more, bring some of the people on to your show and speak about these issues more, just to get some clarity. But anyways, let's move on to the next topic. It's that stuff, the safety stuff, is always like a big concern of mine, especially whenever it comes to like making all the YouTube videos and stuff like that. Like I started filming something and I started thinking about that stuff like pretty much right away. Like, what if this video where I promote this particular coding or whatever, or the technique or anything gets used by somebody else and that somebody gets hurt. That stuff drives me crazy. So I think, and I spent a lot of time doing my own research on that. And anyways, let's move on. So you talked about the stuff that's been happening in your life, but what do you think other guys can actually get out of it? Like, what have you seen over the years? How the other guys transformed their businesses? What good happened in their life, or what do you think can happen in somebody else's life who's not on social media or who's just not super into it?
I mean, holy cow. I mean, I've seen people like change their lives with these coatings, like transform their business. You know, you mentioned Dennis Rodriguez earlier. I mean, holy cow, that guy, he's at a point right now where he's completely rethinking his whole business. He was getting $70 a linear foot for pre-cat. Now he's getting 125 up to 200 sometimes for shooting water-based coatings. Something I never saw coming was being able to charge more for a water-based finish. Like, that just is like sort of blown my mind. And you know, I hear these stories. You know, you got Corey Leister. She started with chalk paint. Now she has her own coating line with Malaysia. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, I really haven't thought that much about it until people actually tell me, and then I'm like, wow, that's shocking. That's amazing. So yeah, I mean, I think getting on there and learning about these things like can be it can change your life. Yeah, I mean, that's about it. I mean, and I think so. That's one part of it, you know, the money aspect. But there's a cool community. I know that there are people out there that dislike what I was talking about with water-based and the water-based revolution. They kind of made fun of me or whatever. But I see a lot of those people now, kind of like respect. You know, there's becoming a level of respect. Like, you know, dude, you know, I guess what you said earlier, like I'm walking the walk. I'm not just talking. Like, I'm like, yeah, here it is. And, you know, that's been my platform. So it's cool to see that. And I think that people's minds are changing about a lot of these things, but I don't know. I mean, I just think there's so many benefits to, I mean, I know that a lot of them people, like, you know, it pushes you because you see other guys and you see their work. You're like, holy crap, man, I gotta do some wood shedding. You know, I gotta get better. And there's that. I mean, I do caution people not to get caught up in that because, you know, what we see online a lot of times is the best version of what we want people to actually see. And it would be nice if more people talked about failures instead of all the successes. But that's just human nature. But you know, there's a lot of you can get a lot of great information, a lot of great advice. If you have a problem, I mean, gee whiz, you can DM someone and 15 minutes later you have an answer. I mean, why would you not want to get online when you have that access to the there's a book about this where NASA, I can't remember the name of the book, and I didn't read all of it, but I read enough of it to get the gist of it. But they were trying to solve some problems, and they had, you know, the greatest minds in, you know, working at NASA, but someone outside of NASA actually solved the problem because it's a collective, you know,
Right.
It's not just my knowledge, but it's your knowledge. Dennis Rodriguez, Matt Slater, Russell Cragelis, you know, all these people, like, it's a collective now. It's not just I have the answer to every problem. Like, somebody may have something I don't have, and when you talk to them and then they post things and all these things happen, so it just, you know, it elevates everything. Everything's getting better all the time at a rapid pace. Yeah, there's another guy, Dan Schaefer. He's an older gentleman. I don't know if you've seen him on Instagram, but he used to hang out in the old Woodweb forums. And you know, that, unfortunately, I don't know what happened to that platform. It kind of just, I guess, just over time fizzled out. But he came from that, and that guy has a ton of great things to bring to the table, especially like more from that older school finishing background, and he got on there because I kept saying, get on Instagram. And he's met a lot of great guys, and now he's seeing so many guys. He's sharing content and sharing different kind of content that you wouldn't get from a guy like me.
It's insane how many great people we have on this planet, but the opportunities that come along with social media, it's really a revolution, a shift, and it's good that we have it during this time with the pandemic and everything else. Because right now we have a conversation face to face. We can, look at each other at the eyes, and in the eyes, and see, what our emotions are. I can FaceTime with Dennis when he is on the boat fishing.
And some of these guys too, like what's interesting, like, I kind of live more in the technical world, and the nuts and bolts of codings and science and all that stuff. But then you have these guys like Nick Slavic that know a lot of that stuff, or Nick May, Brian Kuhn, a lot of these guys are like some of these guys are like business masters. So like they take all this stuff and they're scaling like large business, and they have 26 employees. 26 employees for a paint company is in the top 2% of the world out there. No one has that many people working for them. And these guys, it's a different thing than what I do, but like you have access to these people and they share freely. I mean, there is some paid to some of it, but I mean, the cost is like, if we were in a whole nother industry, like you would be talking, astronomical numbers, and you're getting the same information that you would get by paying. You can pay somebody $5,000. It costs $50,000 in the business world. So I mean, there's just so many resources out there. It's incredible. I don't want to leave out Denny Johns. He's another guy. I mean, there's so many guys, and if I left out somebody, don't. It's just like what kind of popped into my immediate head, but there's so many guys. Then you have all the Fine Paints of Europe guys like Zach Kinney, and all those guys that are doing all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's just, you can pretty much learn anything you want on the internet if you're willing to, connect and get plugged in.
And the other interesting thing is, I feel like we're just at the very beginning of this entire thing that's been happening. Like the wave, it's not even a wave. It's just, a little bit of a wind touching the surface of the water. What advice would you give to your younger self, let's say 5 or 10 years, looking back 5-10 years? What kind of advice would you give to yourself
in
terms of anything?
Life or
on anything? Like, I just want to pick up your brain. Like, what's on your mind the most?
That's a tough question, because kind of my answer to that is like, it's easy in retrospect to go, yeah, I could have probably done this different, but if I'd have done things differently, then I wouldn't be who I am today.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I don't know that I really necessarily, I really don't have any regrets. The only regret I probably am starting to have is on the personal side. I think I'm a little bit out of balance in terms of work. I think I do too much work. I do believe that there is such a thing. Like, I know a lot of guys, they're like, oh, I work 7 days a week and, 14 hours a day. You know what? Yeah, you can, and you can do it for a while. But I think that honestly, like, I would say I'm more creative when I take time off. So that's probably, I think, the advice I would give to myself is like, yeah, get after it and work hard. And there's nothing wrong with working long days, but I think that you've got to take time for yourself, and you got to have time to be creative. That, most of the times where I've stumbled on the cool stuff and been creative was when I was not inundated with 5 million things and trying to get the next job. It's when I gave myself room to breathe and just let my mind wander and think. I mean, I don't know, this maybe getting kind of philosophical or whatever, but I think there's something to be said about taking breaks and scheduling those things into your life, and being a part of a family if you have one. I think those things are important.
Where do you think the roots are coming from Like, why do you think, not going too deep into this, but like just to give our audience the perspective of some sort of a practical advice. What do you think you could have done differently just so you had an opportunity to have more time with your family or work less? My story has a lot to do with money. That's probably why I was working that much. What do you think was the reason behind it?
I think in my case, it's just the ego. Macho ego gets in the way, and some of it it becomes a habit.
Right,
It's like
right.
I'm having to learn to relax. Like it's kind of weird. It's like, man, shouldn't I be doing something? And I think for me, it's just always that. It's like a good thing that I'm always wanting to press forward and get better and better. But I think everyone's different. I just have that. I have that thing about me. It's like, driving it forward. Now there's a lot of people like,
Yeah,
how do you
yeah.
do it? It's like, well, I mean, I get after it all
Just
the time.
yeah.
I mean, there is a financial aspect. I've been in that where like, look, I had to work that because I had to make ends meet, or I did something stupid and got in debt, and I got to dig my way out. I think that's probably a good takeaway. Don't get into debt so that you're stuck in that rat race cycle. I don't know. Is that answering the question?
Yeah, for sure. No, man, like that's a good thing, and I resonated with it a lot. My biggest part is definitely the financial part, like why I was working that hard, because I came from nothing, and that hunger drove me. And then my family, like me and my lovely wife, we started spending more and more and more, and then we just couldn't stop, and we couldn't see that transition.
Sure.
That slow kind of a growth in our spendings, and we didn't see that coming when something happened in our life when we had to spend a bunch of money and stuff like that. But anyways, not going into the details, that's a huge part for me. But what you said is another important thing: the habits. Have you heard about that book? I listened to an audiobook not long ago. It's called Power of Habits.
Yeah.
Can't remember the author.
Mm-hmm. James
You did,
Duhigg.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
James
James
Duhigg.
Duhigg. That's a like
It's a
I've
good
been
book.
thinking about that now. Really good book. Like totally recommend it
Yeah, you kind of
to the guys.
you can get off on working. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like that, like it's a thing. Like it. I think another thing that I would say probably is like, and it's something that I still probably need to get better at is no. I just suck it up. If something goes wrong on a job, it's like, well, suck it up and
it's
take
your
it, and
fault.
and
Yeah,
it's my fault always. Which is good, but it's not healthy either.
yeah,
To always take the blow when you could, when it's really someone else's. It wasn't actually your problem, even though you fixed it. So I
yeah.
think that some of these guys like Nick and some of these guys that are talking about the business stuff, um, I need to get better at that. I mean, naturally, I don't like that stuff, and I don't really like having adversity with clients, but it's a fact of business. And at some point, you have to draw a line in the sand. I mean, that's how I got burnt out the first time, is because I said yes too much. And then talking about those habits is you open that door with designers and builders, and then it becomes an expectation. I've talked with that with other guys. Like, you start off with a company and you're like, oh yeah, man, I'll redo that door even though you screwed it up. And then do that 5, 6, 7 times. And then before you know it, every job is like that. And they're
They
not feeling
expect you.
that pain. You're feeling the pain, but they're not feeling the
Yep,
pain.
exactly.
So yeah, I mean,
And then they expect you to do this stuff for free.
right.
And then when
Yeah.
you say no, they kind of go like,
They
what? Like, sorry.
yeah, it kind of blows their minds because they weren't seeing that one coming.
Yep. Same here. Same here. Yeah, there's a lot to learn, but like, the Chinese philosophy says there's no problems or something like that. Like in every problem we should see an opportunity to grow. It's been such a great conversation. I don't want to ask that last question, but I still will because, I feel like I have to. Where people can get connected with you, man? How can people find you
Oh yeah, well
on
that's
the
pretty
internet?
easy. I mean, you can get to me on YouTube. I'm a little bit slower on comments on there, just by the way that platform exists. But it is. It is a good place to leave questions. But what ends up happening is they go to my phone and they get buried in emails and stuff like that. Then you've got, Instagram. You can catch me on there. And all my handles are at Eric Reason, so it makes it very easy. And then I have LinkedIn and I have TikTok, which TikTok is just kind of, I actually just sort of use it for music. I'm not really doing any legit content. I've just been messing with that platform. Now, I did used to be in a lot of Facebook groups, and I'll mention them just so people can go find them. But there's the Professional Refinishers chat room. There is Kitchen Cabinet Painting Experts and the Kitchen Cabinet Painting Experts Mastermind. I have left those groups, not because they're bad, but it was a personal decision for me. They were eating up too much of my time. And I just decided that I was going to put the information on my own platform instead of sharing them on all these. I would have to go through and you'd spend 2 hours going through and hitting every platform with different information every day. And I was like, this is ridiculous. So I'm not in those groups, but I do suggest going and checking them out and seeing and then there's all these other groups that have popped up. Serve Prep has a group. A lot of these companies are creating their own groups. But yeah, so you can catch me on pretty much any social media platform that's out there. I'm on there.
and for the people who have something to offer, some sort of a deal, not just like a fluffy talk or something like that, what's the best platform to reach out to you? Somebody has some sort of a business deal or some sort of a offer or something that they feel is really important, and then want to get to you, for sure, directly, just so you can answer them. What's the best place to reach out to you?
Probably either email. I mean, I don't really want to give my number out, but that's the best thing is to find my number and call me. So you could actually go to my website and then, call me directly or text me. That's a surefire way to get to me. But I check all of my platforms regularly. The only one, like I would say, that sometimes is slower, and it just depends on, like, I have certain times a day where I answer all that stuff. And then if it gets backlogged, I have another day. So if you get a question in, but YouTube is the slowest one. And the other ones, I will get back to you, fairly quickly usually I try to do 24 hours, but sometimes that doesn't. Sometimes I'll read something and I don't respond immediately, which I try not to do, and it gets buried. But then I always do go back and I check 3 or 4 down to make sure that I haven't missed you. So I do answer everyone, or I try to.
Thank you for coming on the show and sharing all this good stuff. Everybody go follow Eric Reason. You will not regret it. And in the end, I'm going to say your slogan thing, whatever we call it. Guys, always don't forget, test, don't guess. With that being said, Eric, thanks so much. And we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.